Oh, I didn't see you there. I was reading my magazine. I was reading an amazing article called Ghosts in the Water by Paige Williams about how a tsunami in Japan threw off the baby eel population so much that now poachers are growing eels in their garages, causing the prices to skyrocket. Or maybe I was reading this article by Emily Nussbaum about how The Real World by MTV was the beginning of reality TV. See, I can set this magazine down and pick it up whenever I want because I paid for it and therefore I own it physically. It's here, mine. I also don't get annoying pop-up ads, especially the ones that make sound. No, see, the ads here interest me. They're also pretty to gaze upon. Or maybe if you're lucky, include a free perfume sample. Yes, I can take my magazine with me wherever I go. No charger required. I also don't get eye strain that a computer can give. And when I'm done, oh boy, that's when the real fun comes in. I can make mood boards, decoupage, rip out recipes or articles that I really enjoy and would like to come back to and put it maybe in a binder. I can make collages, line a hamster cage, or perhaps dole out swift justice on a fly in the kitchen. The possibilities are endless.
Okay.
Are we doing what, decoupage? I have so many magazines in my trunk.
What kind of magazines?
Elle, Cosmopolitan, Teen Vogue, Men's Vogue, Italian Vogue, Better Homes and Gardens. I got even Better Homes and Gardens. I got Best Gardens in the World.
That's a great idea, but not very good.
Oh.
I hope y'all enjoyed my little moment there. But honestly, what brings me to this testimony is two things. One, while I was trying to research another video topic that I'm currently working on, I was hit with insane amount of paywalls and pop-up ads and ones that make noise, and you can't even sift through the digital page, the digital article, because there's 9,000 ads. They're all talking and popping up, and the little X to exit out of any of them is like this big. And yes, having digital articles at my fingertips is amazing, and it does beat like having to go to different libraries like back in the day. However, I think we are currently seeing a inconvenience trajectory where like what was once super convenient is now becoming so inconvenient. Like, you know, like are online anthologies that more convenient than a physical one? Are the pop-ups, the eye strain, the digital ads, the vague downloading prices for a subscription that much better than just paying $2 for the damn magazine? Or going to your library where they do have usually magazines for you to peruse through for free. Also, shout out to, I think Mina Lee is her name. She's a much better YouTuber. But she has an amazing video essay on kind of the death and the downfall of digital streaming. And it's amazing. I recommend it to like everybody I can. Please go watch it. But I kind of wanted to piggyback on that and talk about maybe the comeback of magazines, because honestly, streaming is not the only digital media that we are getting sick and tired of. Okay, and reason number 2 I wanted to do this topic is because back in the day, magazines were extremely important to pop culture. Don't Tell the Mom the Babysitter's Dead, I think. Like, wasn't the whole plot line of that movie, like, she looked like a Playboy model, and so, like, Playboy, the magazine, was super important. And then also she was going to be, like, a fashion editor to a magazine. Like, that had a double magazine plot line. Of course, Devil Wears Prada, 13 Going on 30, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Like, being a fashion editor or journalist was seen as like such the city girl job that we all wanted. Even shows like Sex and the City, Please Don't Shoot Me. I think even Fear and Loathing in Vegas, wasn't he like a Rolling Stone journalist? I think back then, being a part of a magazine kind of gave you this shine that we now see with influencers as you were influencing the public's opinion. However, one needed to be able to write and create and research and execute actual thought pieces, unlike today's influencers. One of my degrees is in journalism and broadcasting. It was a huge dream of mine, probably influenced by a lot of 2000s rom-coms. However, because of the late 2000s dying art of print media, a lot of us journalists were pushed to find jobs elsewhere. Newspapers and magazines were reducing staff numbers greatly, as well as pay and benefits. Journalism became more of a hobby than an actual respected profession. Hence this entire YouTube channel. Hello. I had to get some creativity out. But see, magazines haven't gone the complete way of the dodo just yet. They're still out there, barely. They're clinging on. They're still out there. They're clinging on to those cash register lines like a damn horsefly. And now statistics are actually showing a comeback. But before I give away too much information, let's grab our TV guides, turn to say page 15, and let's discuss. As we do with all of my videos, we must take a look back before we look forward. And so let's do a brief history on magazines. So the word magazine derives from the Arabic word, I'm not even going to come close to butchering that. And that means like a depot or a storehouse. And that comes to English via Middle French magazine and the Italian magazzino. In its original sense, magazine referred to a storage space or device. In the case of written publication, it refers to a collection of articles. This explains why magazine publications and the term for like storage units in military talk are the same. And in French and Russian, it literally means a department store. So again, magazine just means like a collection of things. Though there may have been published material similar to a magazine in antiquity, especially in ancient China, it was not really known in the sense that we know it until the invention of printing in the West. Of course, it had its roots in pamphlets and almanacs that printing made possible. The magazine thus came to occupy the space in between a newspaper and a book. The earliest magazine appears to be a German one called Edifying Monthly Discussions in 1663 by Johann Riest, a theologian and poet of Hamburg. The Gentleman's Magazine was first published in 1741 in London. It was the first general interest magazine. And the reason that one's special is because Edward Cave, who edited the Gentleman's Magazine under the pen name Sylvanus Urban, was the first to use the term, remember the military term magazine, on the analogy of a military storehouse, the quote being, a monthly collection to treasure up as in a magazine. The lighter type of magazine, or quote, periodical of amusement, may be dated from 1672, which saw the first appearance of Le Mercure Galant, renamed Mercure de France, in 1714. And the reason that's important is because it was founded by the writer Jean de Devise and contained court news, anecdotes, and short pieces of verse. A recipe that was to prove endlessly popular and became widely imitated. So the reason that French one is super important is because it kind of was the first one to have all of the elements of a magazine, if you will. So you had like the first magazine, which is like philosophy and stuff. And then you had the Gentleman's Magazine, which was general interest things. And then you had this French magazine, which had all the crap that we see now, you know, had like funny stuff and important stuff and how to make stuff. It was followed in 1688 by a German periodical with an unwieldly title, but one that well expressed its intention, quote, entertaining and serious, rational and unsophisticated ideas on all kinds of agreeable and useful books and subjects. I mean, you knew what you were reading when you got it, I guess. In 1693, the first magazine specifically made for women, the Ladies' Mercury, was made. In America, however, the first magazines were published in 1741. In that year, Andrew Bradford's American magazine The first publication of its kind in the colonies was made, and it was, of course, joined a mere 3 days later by Benjamin Franklin's General magazine. Benjamin Franklin's was like she was a petty girl. I'll give her that. She was petty.
Your blue robe looks way cooler than all the other girls.
Thanks. Oh my God. Only you would think that you could hide that powder blue, puffy sleeved, it's kind of a peasant dress, but it might just be a baggy disaster of questionable fiber content that you wore to the spring dance. Lizzie McGuire, you are an outfit repeater.
Rude. Both magazines appeared in Philadelphia. Neither lasted very long. However, Bradford's magazine survived only 3 months and Benjamin's 6. Franklin was more wildly known for another of his publications, that Poor Richard's Almanac that we had to study in school. Before the end of the 18th century, however, some 100 magazines had appeared offering miscellaneous entertainment information, mostly on a very shaky local and brief basis. We just love gossip, even back then. By the last quarter of the century, largely as a result of mandatory education, kids had to go to school now, so everybody could read more. The potential market for magazines had greatly increased, and the public was avid for miscellaneous information and entertainment. Much like we are today, people wanted to scroll, if you will. The first man to discover this was in Britain, and his name was George Nunez. And he liked snipping out a paragraph or two that appealed to him. And in 1881, he turned his hobby into like a legit magazine called Tidbits from All the Most Interesting Books, Periodicals, and Contributors of the World. Soon shortened to Titbits, and in 1968 restyled to Tidbits. Anyways, what he would do again is he would kind of cut and paste all the books and newspaper articles and things he liked and like literally put them in a little booklet and just be like, these are all the things that I like, guys. Almost kind of like his very own publication of a Facebook page, if you will. So it was a huge success and formed the beginning of the publishing empire that included the Strand magazine. And the reason the Strand magazine was so popular is it was the one that published Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes stories. So without magazines, we wouldn't have a lot of the classic literature that we enjoyed, because a lot of authors, and this also goes for a lot of manga. I know this is like a huge jump from like English literature to like Japanese manga, but a lot of books, comics, manga, a lot of literature in every way, shape, and form begins in magazines. That's how a lot of authors get started. Anyways, let's jump to illustrations, because this is actually a really fun part. So the first man in Britain to notice that illustrations really grabbed a lot of people's attentions, we love a picture, was Herbert Ingram, who moved to London in 1842 and began publishing the Illustrated London News in 1842. And it was a weekly consisting of 16 pages of letterpress and 32 pages of woodcuts. And so a woodcut is kind of where like they do the picture on wood and put ink on it, I think, and then like stamp it. I actually have a woodcut tattoo on my back. It's a very interesting art form. It was so successful that even the Archbishop of Canterbury gave his approval. So you love when the church is like, we love pictures, man. However, it suffered a little at first from the defect that its pictures were by well-known artists, but were not taken from life. So it later sent artists all over the world. Drawings made on the spot during the South African War, sometimes a considerable risk, obviously, were a great popular feature. So literally sending artists on the front lines, and people are shooting each other and they're just like sketching away real fast. In the United States, across the pond, the main early illustrated magazines were Leslie's Weekly and Harper's Weekly. Soon after its founding, Leslie's had a circulation of 100,000, which doubled and tripled whenever there was something sensational to portray, such as the Civil War. It had as many as 12 correspondents on the front lines of the Civil War, illustrating what was happening so that people could see. And I find that fascinating. That is such a fascinating like thing that we take for granted because we have pictures. We've always had pictures for so long. But back then, you really had to rely on someone drawing the Civil War so that others could see. Do you think they recognized some soldiers? Like a girl was like looking, she was like, oh my God, that's Tom, y'all. Look, it's Tom. Of course, the invention of photography really shook things up in the magazine world. And this happened around the 1890s. And of course, put a lot of artists out of business. Now, before I hop to the 20th century magazines that we kind of know, I have to stop real quick and talk about advertising. Because advertising and magazines have a very symbiotic relationship. They don't really enjoy each other, but they have to have one another to live. So let's kind of discuss that. There's actually a huge resistance to advertising in magazines back in the 1800s, as it was seen as really trashy. You know, you had like this wonderful magazine of philosophy and literature and art. And then you have like, you turn the page and there's like an ad for cocaine tablets. However, when the advertisement, or I guess advertisement, tax in Britain was repealed in 1853, the more advertising began to appear. The Athenaeum thought fit to say, quote, "It is the duty of the independent journal to protect as far as possible the credulous, confiding, and unwary from the wily arts of the insidious advertiser." Essentially saying, like, it's our job to keep these nasty little advertisers out of our fancy little book. In the United States, many magazines, such as Harper's, took a high line with would-be advertisers until the 1880s. They hung out as long as they could, guys. And Reader's Digest, with its mammoth circulation, admitted advertisements to its American edition only in 1955. They held out really long. That's super impressive. However, today, of course, some sectors of the magazine industry are dominated by advertising, and few are wholly free from its influence. In the United States, Cyrus Curtis showed what could be achieved in attracting advertising revenue with the Saturday Evening Post. And I know everybody's really familiar with that because a lot of good paintings and covers. You see it in a lot of flea markets. He bought the magazine for $1,000 in 1897 when it was on its last legs and invested $1,250,000 of his profits from the Ladies' Home Journal before it finally started making profit. He really believed in it, guys. However, when it did, it paid off. Okay, it paid off. Because through the appeal based on well-founded stories and articles about the business world, a prime interest at the time, it was enormously successful. And by 1922, it had a circulation of more than 2 million and an advertising revenue of $28 million. And that's like what, like $9 billion now? I don't know. So his investment really paid off. It was a classic demonstration of modern magazine economics. As circulation rose in the initial phase of low advertising rates. So, advertisers could pay like a nickel for advertising space, and then more and more people started to get in the magazine, and so the magazine started charging more for advertisements in it, making more money. It was an investment by the magazine itself, if you will. However, as we're soon about to see, when high rates are maintained on a falling circulation, the advertisers are the ones who lose until they withdraw support completely. We have advertisers just putting ads in magazines. You know, they're just like, people are looking at this. Look at my ad. But someone decided to pay attention to how people viewing these ads affected their buying habits, and now we know the term is market research. The first organization for this was set up in 1911 by the Curtis Publishing Company. But the research did not become general, like actual professions and companies and stuff until like the 1930s. So reader research to ascertain what readers wanted from magazines was developed in the 1930s and proved to be a very useful tool. As was once observed by the features editors of Vogue, quote, "If we find out what the people want, it's already too late." Thus, the popular magazine with an expanding economy became part of the marketing system. In the 1900s, advertisements might form up to 50% of its contents in a magazine, and by 1947, that went up to 65%. At the turn of the century, advertisers went from the back of a magazine to the forefront, which was more expensive for them, but would pay off with market research. However, it wasn't super duper liked by readers, and it's still not super liked.
What's that?
Italian Vogue.
Mamma mia, that's a lot of pages.
It's a lot of ads.
Okay, but this is my favorite part. So at the same time, we're starting to see market research. We're starting to see like people are paying attention to the stuff that we design and put in these magazines for them to see. So much so that we can tell them what to buy before they even know to buy it. We see it right now with pickleball. You know, no one was playing pickleball, but because some company made too many, they started controlling us into caring about pickleball. Advertising agencies were developing from mere space sellers into copywriters and designers. Their efforts to produce work of high visual appeal forced editors to make their own editorial typography and layout more attractive, a la Mad Men. So we're seeing, again, kind of like Mad Men. If you haven't watched that show, go watch it. It's fantastic. But it's fascinating from a historical perspective because what was once just like, you know, slap this, that, and like, you know, make a jingle. We're now seeing the Don Drapers of the world essentially control the country because, as you will see in that show, and it's fictionalized, but it is based on this time of the 40s to probably early 90s, I would say, in my opinion, of advertisers creating and predicting how us consumers behave, essentially. They tell us what will trend, when it will trend, what's done trending. Like they were puppeting us masses, and it's fascinating because they put insane amount of money and time and effort into these ads, you know, and you can look at ads from even the 90s from like a kids magazine and the photo shoot, the lighting, the makeup, the models. These advertisements were a part of pop culture. They launched careers in some cases. Advertising, so the creation of magazines led to this market research concept that now, you know, we saw with like the Mad Men of the 60s where they were producing shorts, you know, films to promote like in Mad Men, the Coke ad that went around the world. Pull back here. I just find that super fascinating that people don't understand how much work goes into an ad. And I feel like right now, you know, we get like maybe 30 seconds of ads around YouTube or something or on Hulu, and like how Don Draper would probably just be like, I have 30 seconds to sell this to somebody? Are you kidding me? It's much cheaper probably to make now. Okay, but an innovation in the 1930s, let's go back to magazines. Sorry, this is not about advertisements, this is about magazines. But in the 1930s, we saw the first time that magazines were being put in supermarkets. One of the first most successful ones was the Family Circle, founded in 1932, given away at Piggly Wiggly supermarkets until 1946, when it was sold as a family monthly. So that was when they worked something out with Piggly Wiggly and sold magazines. At first they were given away, which probably was better, but then they found out that if they just put them by the cash register, housewives would buy them. And of course, everybody jumped on board, and they still do to this day. Okay, let's get to the 20th century, right before modern day. The development of magazines stimulated an increase in literary criticism and political debate, moving towards more opinionated pieces from the objective newspaper. The increased time between prints and the greater amount of space to write provided a forum for public arguments by scholars and critical observers. So think of newspapers as kind of like a Reddit post or a Facebook post, and then like the little comments, and it's coming out weekly. So it changes a bunch and it can be controlled a bunch. And magazines were more well-researched, thought out, had a month to kind of really interview a lot of different opinions and types, and they weren't necessarily controlled as closely as a newspaper, So people respected a magazine article or opinion more than a newspaper. Mass circulation magazines became much more common after 1900. Some circulations in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and some passed the million mark in the 1920s. It was an age of mass media.
Tears on the mausoleum floor, blood stains the Coliseum doors, lies on the lips of a priest, rolling in the Rolls Royce Corniche.
Because of the rapid expansion of national advertising, the cover price fell sharply to about 10 cents. So again, the more advertisements and people buying that, it's this weird symbiotic thing of like ads make Coca-Cola ad. Costs a lot of money. It's a huge investment. They put it in the magazines, and then people glance at it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, but everybody sees it because it's in a lot of general interest magazines. So everybody knows it. And then people start buying Cokes, and then the ad people get their money, and then they get to make more Coke ads. And it's this weird thing that like we're not aware of happening to us. But the more money that the ads make, and then the magazines can sell the magazines cheaper. And so more people are willing to buy it, and then more people see the ads and fall for what they're advertising. And so again, marketing is a very fascinating area to dive into, like the history of marketing. I could really ramble, but I'm trying to stay focused and keep your attention like an ad. Okay. My favorite thing is magazines really kind of shed the light and changed a lot of laws in America that through their like investigative journalism, which is what I love. So there was heavy corruption in politics, local government, big business, and those were investigated by the journalists called muckrackers. And they wrote for popular magazines to expose social and political sins and shortcomings. So they were specifically gonna dig up the dirt. They were essentially like they were gonna do Watergate all the time. Muckrackers often work to expose social ills and corporate and political corruptions. Muckracking magazine, notably McClure's, took on corporate monopolies and crooked political machines while raising public awareness of chronic urban poverty, unsafe working conditions, and social issues such as child labor. For example, Samuel Hopkins Adams in 1905 showed the fraud involvement in many patent medicines. Upton Sinclair's 1906 novel The Jungle, which was portrayed in a magazine, gave a horrid portrayal of how meat was packed. And also in 1906, David Graham Phillips unleashed a blistering indictment of the U.S. Senate. Roosevelt gave these journalists their nickname when he complained that they were not being helpful by racking up all the muck. But investigative journalism in magazines, because you have more space and you have more time than a newspaper, was crucially important in our history, because you can't necessarily come up with this stuff weekly. You need time to investigate, again, like Watergate. But you can't write a book about it. No one's going to just sit there and read a book. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of broad here of like magazines from like the 70s to the 2000s, because that was like a really, really prominent time in magazines. And it's something that I feel like me and you can think back to.
Very handy, I can tell. I bet you like to read a lot, too.
Print is dead.
I mean, how many of us know or remember the commercial for Nickelodeon magazine?
You're on a mission to get Nickelodeon magazine. It's packed with celebrity interviews and comics and puzzles and great stuff to collect. But only a real live grown-up can call to order it for you. Of course, you can think of a nice, polite way to ask.
Nickelodeon magazine, please.
I remember even getting Disney Channel or Disney magazine, the little one. I didn't even have the Disney Channel, but I got that magazine. And of course, like 17, YM, these important publications for young teens that I feel... Modern Girls, the YouTube channel, has a great video essay on the missing tween space that we don't see anymore. I highly recommend it. But those magazines like YM, Teen Vogue, I think still exist, but at the time, Teen Vogue, and 17 magazine had appropriate articles for teenagers that we don't see. You know, because now these teens are getting fed information that adults should be consuming. And I'm not saying that 17 magazine was sitting here talking about like just boy crushes and stuff. They did talk about like internet predators, staying safe in area, you know, what to do when you're getting lost, religious cults. Like there were hard-hitting articles back then, but they were still appropriate for a teenage audience to consume. And now I feel without these magazine publications, what are the teens reading nowadays? I feel like they're on Reddit, you know, just kind of consuming all the bull crap that the adults have to sift through. And teens don't really necessarily need to be handling all that. But again, I feel like there are magazine covers that are iconic to pop culture, if not just your own personal nostalgia. There are magazine articles that change lives and bring information to people. There are advertisements that we all remember that affected us. Like magazines, when you pull back, were so important to us as a culture, and now we don't have them widespread anymore. And it's just sad. I understand, and we'll get to present day magazines. I understand they are a luxury right now, as a lot of people do not have the income to subscribe to a whole ass magazine. But we're going to be discussing how Generation Z is now pulling away from digital subscriptions and entering physical subscriptions, because guess what? When you pay for your magazine, you own it. I have this forever. I love a Vogue. But the reason I love a Vogue personally, and why I still buy it and subscribe to it, and New Yorker and Vanity Fair, is not only because like I grew up with them, but sometimes when I'm at my pool or outside with my kids, like I don't want to read a book. I don't want to hold a physical book, but I definitely don't want to scroll on my phone. I hate being on my phone, honestly. It makes me so angry and brings me so much negative emotions. And I know what you're saying. Montana, fix your algorithm. The algorithm isn't algorithming, okay? Like, I have this trick now, and this is a tangent. I have these a few during every video, so hold on. But I have this mental health trick where when I am on TikTok, and I would delete the app, but I do have friends and they send me videos, and me and my husband send each other videos. So, but on TikTok, I will scroll 5 times. And in 5 swipes, if I do not see something that interests me or is a part of my algorithm, I will turn the app off and try again, maybe later that night when I'm in bed or something. But I just caught myself scrolling, and the ads, I know they have less time to get our attention, so they're stupider now. They're not well thought out. They're not aesthetically pleasing. They're using influencers half the time, and that's a whole discussion. But I just feel like when I am quote unquote scrolling a magazine, it's just like more aesthetically pleasing. Look how beautiful Zendaya is. Oh, God. And like, look at this article on nails. To the point. Tantalizing, long, or trimmed short. What do our nails say about who we are? Lena Dunham examines the meaning of the manicure. And for me, look at this article. I'm going to read it. I find that so interesting. Like, and sure, if I was scrolling, someone could tell me the article. I don't know. Like, I just find this, it doesn't give me that blue screen headache. I own it. I don't know. Like, me and my husband are becoming such kind of like old millennials, I guess, because we sit in this parlor. He has like a little love seat across from over here where he'll smoke his pipe, Sherlock Holmes pipe, not a pipe, but he'll smoke a cigar, like a Black and Mild or something, or his little cigar pipe. And I'll read a magazine. And we look like probably such a little old couple, because I'm just like, well, look at this. Look at this little watch magazine about Elizabeth Taylor's watch. You know, Burton paid $2 million for it. And he's just like, that's crazy. And we discuss it. And I just feel with scrolling, I think we're all kind of seeing our attention spans are getting shorter. A magazine's going to grip you. And maybe it's a good exercise if you can't read books anymore. I see a lot of people being like, well, I can't hold my attention to a book. Maybe magazines, because they're just a page of an article, are a good way to work your brain out into getting that sustainability to read a book again. But I digress about like the scrolling in the internet, but just magazines in general, of how important they were to pop culture. The actual articles, I hate to say it, but Playboy has had really good articles that were more like Playboy. Let's just take a second. I know Hugh Hefner was a piece of fucking garbage, but the magazine publication of Playboy was actually a very good magazine. Because of course it had tasteful nudes, tasteful nudes. I had a relative and a friend that were in Playboy, but they had tasteful nudes, nothing to be ashamed of. Women are beautiful. We love to see it. Nothing quite like Hustler. Hustler would scare you. It had like a pop-up vagina when you opened it. But anyways, but there would be articles about, I remember the famous one, there's an essay of a man landed on a planet where men were with men and women were with women. And he was like, everybody's gay. And they were just like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't you be with a man? Why would you be with a woman? That's a whole different gender. Like the concept of two opposite genders being a couple was seen how we see like LGBTQ couples. And this was published like back in the day when this was not a thing to be discussed. And that is amazing. Dolly Parton had a great interview in there. A lot of really interesting articles. There was business, like I remember being a young preteen and like flipping through my dad's Playboy, just trying to see what was inside there. And my nerdy self would be more interested in the articles because they would cover like movies and TV shows and actors. And I'd be reading an article that Brendan Fraser interviewed for about The Mummy. And then like, sure, there were naked girls, but I was a girl. I didn't care. And I don't know. I just feel like we lost a lot of general discussion and again pop culture when magazines declined. I understand why they did, and we'll get into it, but I just feel like we really lost a lot as a culture. Let's get into present day publications. According to the research department of Statista, closures of magazines outnumbered launches in North America around 2009. However, at the beginning of 2015, launches of magazines outnumbered closures by a 3-to-1 ratio. Focusing more narrowly, MediaFinder.com found that 93 new magazines were launched during the first 6 months of 2014, while only 30 closed in that time frame. The category which produced the most new publications was, quote, regional interest, which was like craft beer and brewing, you know. A few magazines kind of had to change their print schedule. For example, Ladies' Home Journal, my mom used to get that, stopped their monthly schedule and home delivery for subscribers to become a quarterly newsstand-only special interest publication. I don't even think my mom noticed. My mom gets so many magazine subscriptions. She tells me like, I stopped subscribing years ago. They just send them to me. I think, but that's true because me and my sister got 17 magazine. And then of course, when I was like in college, I was like, oh, we don't need it anymore. And my mom called. I remember her calling, just being like, we don't need it. They're not 17. Thank you. And we got it until they stopped circulating it. Like they were just like, take it, just take it. Anyways, according to statistics from the end of 2013, subscription levels for 22 of the top 25 magazines declined, with just Time, Glamour, and ESPN gaining numbers. So we're going to see a lot of waxing and waning, and it's very interesting. Let's jump to recent years, 2024, where we're growing in popularity. And why? Why are we seeing a growth? Some magazines have luckily been able, the ones that started like centuries ago, for example, Lloyd's List was founded in Edward Lloyd's England coffee shop in 1734. And although its online platform is still updated daily, it hasn't published a magazine since 2013 after 274 years of publishing. But it is still clinging on. So maybe we can make a resurgence and get him back in the physical form. RCA Communications has a great piece by Amanda Green about how Generation Z is slowing down the media and technology trend, like almost to a standstill. Now, she goes on to say this is mostly due to an increase in production costs combined with a decrease in advertising revenue. Again, magazines lived on advertising revenue. As my husband called it, he said it was a booklet of ads. Me and him got in a huge discussion, as we do. I'm a Gemini, he's a Capricorn. We're going to discuss. And we got in a huge discussion of ads because I'm a journalist major. I'm a journalist at heart. And he's a curious little guy. And so he loves picking my brain, and I love answering and acting like I know everything. But it works out because he was like, oh, it's just a booklet of ads. And let's take this Vogue, for example, because I have it. But Vogue does this special thing where the ads are part of the Vogue experience. I love fashion. Can't you tell by my TJ Maxx tank top? I do love fashion, though, even though I can't afford it. But I do love fashion.
It's fashion. It's fashion? Is it wait, but is it fashion? It's fashion.
And I want to see this product ad. I want to see this Prada ad with Scarlett Johansson looking odd, to be honest. But that bag's fabulous. But like, I want to see it because this is the new Prada collection. This is what I want to see. The ads are a part of the Vogue experience. Oh, that was staring at me. But this is part of the experience. This is why I buy it. And oh, she's just gorgeous. I love her. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. But the ads are part of the experience. And he was saying that he loved to get Louisiana Cooking. God, he hoarded those. I had to throw so many away when he wasn't home. He hoarded those. He's probably watching this like, you threw those away? I did. I'm sorry. But anyways, I kept a few. But he hoarded them so badly. And he was saying how he looked at one recently and the ads were for like, you know, vacations and bow fishing and like a Chevy and all this stuff. And he was like, they're not pertaining to, he said, I would rather the ads be pertaining to cooking. If it's a Louisiana cooking magazine, give me an ad for Jimmy Dean sausage. Give me an ad for canola oil. He was like, anything. I'll take the ads, even if they're 60%, if they're related to the subject matter, much like Vogue. The ads are going to be fashion centered, usually. And I was kind of telling him, like in this video essay, of magazines are suffering. Advertisers find it cheaper to use social media advertising. Why would they pay for a photo shoot, a designer, a model, a makeup artist, lighting, photographer, all of this stuff that they once put the time and effort into to create an ad when they can hire a TikTok influencer for less than half to do it on TikTok and just as many people will see it. And therefore, canola oil will pull out. They're going, no, we get enough on TikTok. And Chevy has enough money to do all the ad space. And so they'll go, all right, we'll take that ad space. And so that's how you get the Chevy ad in the middle of Louisiana cooking, is because they have more money. And the magazine is on its last legs and they desperately need the ads. So, you know, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. That's kind of up to us, the readers, because as we saw back in that marketing research chapter, the more people reading the magazine, the more control and money the magazine has with who it chooses for its ads. And again, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not super fun. And the readers and the editors and the advertisers, none of us are enjoying any bit of it. But in order to enjoy the magazine, the money, we all kind of have to like work together. Back to the point. Digital publication. I love how I rant and then I'm like right back to my script. It's a hard cut. Digital publications filled with affiliate links and freelance contributors, again, influencers, have taken their place. So in the 20aughts, we all became addicted to lovely little BuzzFeed. You know, everybody loved BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed really kind of screwed over a lot of magazines because it was giving us magazine articles digitally. The BuzzFeed era, if you will, of media publishing where affiliate marketing and freelance content contributors, influencers, became commonplace just about for every genre of press. So BuzzFeed is to blame. I'm kidding. It's not. But it did highly contribute to the final blow in physical media. Again, this is a roller coaster that we are on. So we've seen the BuzzFeed, but then people didn't like BuzzFeed no more. The content got stupid because they were running out of things to talk about. Because when you have to update daily, like 24 hours news, you start talking about stuff people don't care about. And it becomes about quantity over quality. So in the 2020s, something started to shift that made us think print publishing will make a comeback, at least in certain niches. A slow media trend is starting to form. In some cases, magazines that are completely disappeared are relaunching in print for the first time in years. According to an article published in Fortune in November 2023, America has lost 1/3 of its newspapers and 2/3 of its newspapers' journalists since 2005. The article sources a Northwestern University study that claims 2.5 newspapers closed each week in 2023. Science journalist Prabita Saha posted her frustration on the platform, writing, quote, "I'm frustrated, incensed, and appalled that the owners shut down a pioneering publication that's adapted over 151 years worth of changes in the space of a 5-minute Zoom call. Saha was the senior editor at Popular Science, and in November 2023, news spread that, again, after 151 years of persevering and holding on, Popular Science will stop publishing the magazine as we know it. The publication had already moved from a print magazine to digital in 2021. Now they're doing neither. The change at Popular Science and other publications, however, is not surprising at the time. And that's super unfortunate because a little about me is I graduated with my lovely little journalism and broadcasting degree right at 2015, 2016. And I had been doing it as an intern. I had been doing it as I did sports for a long time, because one thing they don't tell you about the news is it's super depressing because people just want to hear about bad stuff all the time. And so to avoid depression, I did sports. But to grow as a journalist, you do have to cover more important topics. And let's be honest, at 2015, 2016, we saw the rise of the Trump presidency. And regardless of how you feel about Trump or whoever, I didn't want to write about the same person for the next decade because that's all they wanted to write about. And that's all the news covered. And even now. And I just couldn't do it. Again, had nothing to do with my political affiliations. Honestly, I wouldn't want to write about any one subject for an entire almost career. And then also, like I said, they were cutting senior editors, much less newbies. That is why I am not a journalist professionally. But my heart's still there. Anyways, so while traditional I know I keep tugging back and forth on like, is it dead? Is it coming back? Like, what are we doing, Montana? Because you just said this one died after 151 years of maintaining, and now you're saying they're coming back. I promise I have a conclusion. So much like we saw us millennials making vinyl records popular again, of which my dad cannot believe that there are vinyl records at Walmart. He is always shocked by that. Younger millennials in Generation Z are turning away from their digital lives to live slower. Many of them don't participate in social media at all. They want to surround themselves with objects that showcase the qualities that define them as human beings, which is a very fascinating thing because we have like our online presence, and I feel like Generation Z is wanting a physical presence. They love vintage items, natural shapes, such as the scent and feel of fresh print held between their fingers. It's kicking off a rise in slow media and an obsession with print magazines that makes readers feel a certain way. These are much different than the advertisement-filled lifestyle publications of the past. That kind of stuff is easy to find online. Like I said, you'll find hot garbage everywhere. Today's new and growing magazines in print are seen as luxury items. They are decor. They are works of art. They are objects. And I find that sad. I'm going to be honest with you, because what was once seen as a cheap thrill is now seen as oh, wow, you have like magazine money. Like, you've got money to burn on a magazine subscription. Okay, money bags. Like, okay, let's just take a look real quick at a 90s day at the beauty salon. You got your hair done. You read a magazine. You smoked a cigarette. And maybe got your eyebrows done or your nails done. Today, in this economy, that would cost you over $100 to partake in all of that. But back in the day, that was an average day for a lot of our moms and aunts. And it's just so sad that if I was to go back in time and tell like those women like, oh, in the future, this is going to be seen as bougie. Like, this is going to be seen as a treat yourself day. You got money to burn. And they're just like, for a magazine and a cigarette? Yeah. Again, like, Generation Z is seeing it as a luxury item. And that's just so So sad. Again, back to Vogue real quick. Vogue was popular with everybody because it gave you a window to luxury. It gives me a window to things I know I'll never have, but I like to know about them. And now Vogue itself is a luxury. You get what I'm saying? What was once a mere window to luxury is now a luxury item itself. That is wild. So we are seeing the print renaissance unfold in very certain niches. For example, Cherry Bomb magazine, which offers a fresh take on food trends and currently has over 10,000 subscribers in its print publication. Carrie Diamond, founder and editorial director of Cherry Bomb, says she hopes that what drives her loyal following, quote, is a love of our mission and a love of printed matter. The Cherry Bomb Network can credit some of its success to being so much more than just a magazine. It's a mixture of traditional and new media. Cherry Bomb includes not only a magazine, but a gorgeous website, an Instagram, and other digital content. Diamond says brand cohesiveness is always important. It definitely helps to have a network that includes podcasting, events, socials, newsletters, magazines. In the beginning, all we had was a magazine. I don't even think we had a website. Yet now, all of her channels are growing. Savior, a 30-year-old food and culture magazine, was forced to cease its print operations, but will now relaunch as an indie brand. The new editor-in-chief, Kat Craddock, announced in November 2023 a return to print. She says on the website, quote, frankly, the old school high volume print model isn't sustainable. At least not for us. Traditional magazine publishing tended to rely on selling subscriptions for a song, sometimes even giving them away, just to build massive circulation lists. It's no secret that the pool of potential subscribers isn't what it used to be. And even huge circulation numbers don't promise the ad revenue they once did. Meanwhile, the parts of our brand that make it special, the ambitious culinary travel writing, first in-class photography and design, and rigorously tested original recipes are expensive to produce. We also have a renewed dedication to offer fair compensation to our contributors. Therefore, the model has changed. She goes on to explain how simplifying their supply chain and focusing on sustainability and luxury. The first issue of this new Savior will drop March of 2024. Which it already has. Okay. And in outdoor niches, the Adventure Journal is a printed quarterly magazine dedicated to the thrill of exploration and the joy of motion in the great outdoors. There's no denying that the look and feel of the publication is important. Printed right on the homepage of the publication's website are details on the type of cardstock the magazine is printed on. It also caters to an environmentally conscious consumer base by mentioning that their operations are solar powered, printed on sustainable paper, and that they plant a tree for every copy sold. An annual subscription is $60. Again, we have Afar, which is an award-winning travel media outlet filled with essays that travelers actually want to read. We have Cabana, is a sophisticated design and lifestyle publication that some consider the mother of all coffee table press. We even have Enchanted Living, which celebrates people interested in fairy culture. These outlets are undoubtedly smaller than something we saw in the peak lifestyle era of Good Housekeeping and Real Simple, but they service their consumers well and match the trend of waning mainstream pop culture. So let's kind of get into like present and future and like how we can get magazines back, if they're going to stay, what's going to happen. So I know a lot of people talk about like the comeback of vinyl, and vinyl's a little bit different than the comeback of magazines ish, in the sense that vinyls are cheaper to produce because the songs have already been made. They've already been recorded. You just have to throw them on a vinyl and you're making more money. Whereas a magazine has to employ journalists and photographers and more to come up with something new almost every month. And I know we talked about the slow media movement that Generation Z is really pushing into, but it's not just happening in enchanted fairy magazines, I promise. More research proved that local newspaper and magazines are also coming back because people want reliable information since we have been bogged down and beaten down by so many online lies. Actually, my dissertation in college, my senior year, was on social media journalism versus actual journalism. And is it the death of journalism? Is it going to change how journalism is done? So yeah, I know a lot about that, but that's a whole different topic. We're talking about magazines. Stay. The slow media movement isn't only happening in niche areas right now. It is starting to take hold in regional publications as well. For example, West End Phoenix is a newspaper that covers West Toronto. The paper's website printed right onto its homepage, quote, "slow print for fast times." That's so good. I like that. It's filled with colorful art, quality articles, photography, making it an object as much as a newspaper. Again, we're wanting objects. We want tangible things to own because we've seen through digital things, we don't own any of it anymore. And so now people are like, if I'm paying the money, it's mine. Readers are looking for news sources to replace their local newspapers that are all too often owned by private equity firms and massive media conglomerates. The focus on quality journalism that may or may not drive clicks and views to go viral, but rather services a community that has slowly been disappearing. And I feel like a lot of us see that of the villages disappearing. We're no longer communities anymore. The result, as outlined by a Northwestern University study, is an increase in political polarization and news deserts in rural communities in the United States. Again, we see that a lot. I live in a rural community, and a lot of people are given media that was heavily influenced, if you will. And the journalism is lacking, and it's fear-mongering, and it's meant to serve a purpose more than just giving information, if you will. News consumers, however, are wising up to it and seeking alternatives. I feel like the millennials and the Generation Zs were so tired of either political party, honestly, and being treated like we don't know what's going on. We are seeking almost, if not like third-party observations. And again, it goes back to that neutrality journalism of the yesteryear. When I was trained in journalism, we were docked off points if we put any level of personal influence in our stories or our broadcasts. If I was to say, everyone looks super happy today, that was going to dock me off points or get me in trouble when I was actually doing news, because that was me giving my perception. Now, what I could do was go ask somebody, how do you feel today? How do you feel about this event? And the person could say, I feel great. And then I could say, you heard it here. Consumers are saying they are having a great time, and I feel we're getting back to that journalism, or we're desiring it at least, of we don't care about how you feel, newscaster. We want to see the evidence of what people are saying. This cultural reawakening is probably what's going to bring newspapers and paper magazines back from the brink. One small town newspaper in Virginia found that transparency may be the key to its survival. Editor-in-chief Ann Adams turned into crowdsourcing and donations during the pandemic and found that people want to keep the news alive. The paper almost more than doubled its subscription and newsstand rates, bringing circulation up to about a third of its revenue. Quote, "We also knew we had to provide something that was worth the price," says Adams. "We vowed to publish no fewer than 40 pages a week, no matter our ad count," so that's disclosing ads, "double the color pages, use more and larger photos, and bring the, quote, good people-oriented news to the front and relegate meeting coverage and other news towards the back." She says it's about celebrating the positive aspects of life in her special community. And I feel like we saw that with 13 Going on 30 when Jennifer Garner was like, we need to talk about the girls we know. We need to talk about our sisters. We need to talk, we need to talk about the people we know.
Who are these women? Does anyone know? I don't recognize any of them. I want to see my best friend's big sister and the girls from the soccer team. My next door neighbor. Real women who are smart and pretty and happy to be who they are. These are the women to look up to. Let's put life back into the magazine. And fun and laughter and silliness. I think all of us want to feel something that we've forgotten or turned our backs on. Because maybe we didn't realize how much we were leaving behind.
We need to talk about the community we live in. Because although it's nice to know about the news across the world, we're a community no matter our political or religious or whatever affiliates. And that's what I tell my neighbors all the time when we kind of get in like those debates, is at the end of the day, we are neighbors. Y'all are my community. We have to help each other out, no matter what's going on in Washington, no matter what's going on in heaven. Like, this is reality. So we have to celebrate the things that are happening in our community and work together. And I think that's kind of what local news is seeing, is instead of talking about things on the forefront that are happening across the world, those are important. We need to kind of see what's happening to us that can affect us locally. Because for a long time in real big cities and metropolitan areas, there was a quote called, "If it bleeds, it leads" mentality. Again, that was when I was doing journalism and it got super depressing. But a lot of news, local news, are doing away with that mentality. Instead, for example, in the Recorder, you find stories about people. Quote, "We cover every aspect of life here. There is no other thorough source of news. We cover every athletic team, including a local community college. We are at every school board meeting and graduation. I've always quipped that any child who grows up in this area has virtually their entire life documented in the pages." And that's the kind of voice and service that could bring slow media back to life across America. Online audiences have come to expect news updates daily, if not hourly. And I know what you're saying, like casual readers are less willing to wait for a monthly publication, if not weekly newspaper. They want it free, cheap. Digital content may deter them from purchasing print subscriptions on individual issues. Like it is going to be a tough fight. It is a tough fight, but I think it's one worth having because again, some commenters have attributed the enduring appeal of print magazines to the physical experience of reading. Again, kind of like with my Greek retellings video where I talked about publishing is not dying. If anything, it's coming full throttle because people want to own their books. Now, e-readers are very popular, but people want to come back to their books. They want to, as they call them, they want to look at their trophies, like they want to look at their bookshelves and just be like, I did that. We absorb information differently on a page versus a screen, perhaps in a less frantic and distractible way. Quote, "Digital fatigue from the years of the pandemic has arguably resulted in a small pivot back to print media. We're sick of it. We're sick of freaking scrolling, okay? The revived interest in print magazines has also been attributed to preferences in Generation Z readers. Again, they have grown up with it. Us millennials are tired of it, but Generation Z, this is all they've known. And so the nostalgia of a print magazine that they have never grown up with is like, again, a concept they've never they've never grown up with it. As writer Hope Corrigan has noted, there is also something appealing about the aesthetics of a print magazine. And we know Generation Z loves an aesthetic. The care taken with a layout, images, and copy can't always be replicated as on screen. Indeed, magazines with a significant focus on photography and visual design, such as fashion and travel magazines, are enduring in print because we want to see the pretty photos. We want to see, look at Zendaya. Look at her. This is fabulous. Look at these shoes, these gold shoes in a mound of peppers. That's art. I'm going to put my Crocs in some pepperoncini peppers. So again, new magazines are going to be focusing on quality. For the few subscribers that are willing to pay that money for quality versus making a cheaper magazine for cheaper, magazines are luxury items. So you better get a luxury experience if I'm paying $12 because of course they're going to be more expensive nowadays. And they're going to be published probably less frequently depending on who they are. But there is hope with advertising, which will make them cheaper. Because remember, we talked about advertising economics. And if the advertisers are willing to pay more, then the magazines are going to be cheaper. And there is hope because print magazines may also be seeing a revived interest in advertising from advertisers. Recent research indicates a strong preference for print advertising among consumers. Readers are far more likely to pay attention to a print advertisement and trust its content. By contrast, online advertising is more likely to be ignored or dismissed. And I feel that's because we're absolutely bombarded on screen with ads. Again, my TikTok trick of I will scroll 5 times and honestly, 3 out of those 5 is going to be ads that don't pertain to me whatsoever. I know the algorithm does what it can, but I get ads for shit I've never, ever in my life needed, wanted, mentioned for my phone to listen to. Like, who is this for? And I just feel like print ads, in my idea, if I'm an advertiser, I'm Don Draper. Betty, what do you want? Anyways. So I'm Don Draper and I'm doing social media ads and the TikTok and I'm just like, like our brand of lotion. We're doing the TikTok ads. It's taken off. It maybe went viral for a little bit, but people are going to another lotion and we need them to come back to our lotion. But people have always bought the things that are in vogue. Those brands have never dipped. So do we need to take an ad out in Vogue to show that our lotion, is of the quality of the consumers of Vogue, is of the brand association? This is not just some trending little beauty talk lotion. This is like legit lotion. I don't know why I picked lotion, but anyways, this is, this is level of like Bath and Body Works art stuff. This is serious lotion. Let's put a celebrity model that people love. Let's have Zendaya hold the lotion. Zendaya loves this lotion. It's in Vogue. That's going to give us brand loyalty, a seriousness that people with money are going to invest in our lotion because we took the time to put the ad of Zendaya in the Vogue. All right. You've made it towards the end. Congratulations. Now we get my personal ramblings as if I didn't give y'all enough. But I love a magazine. I always have. It's never gone out of style for me because I just love, like I said, I read a ton of books, but sometimes I just don't have the mental energy, or I'm watching my kids, or, I'm doing something that needs me to kill time, but not enough to like get invested in a book. So I've always loved a magazine. I've always loved fashion. I love recipes. I love articles. I love writing. I love reading good writing. I'm always interested in learning and supporting other writers. And I love the thought and design that goes into photo shoots. Like, I just love the whole concept. Again, Devil Wears Prada really did a number on me because I was just like, oh my God, the world of fashion. To be in that montage of Anne Hathaway trotting through Manhattan and all the outfits as she's getting stuff, for Miranda, like, could that be me today, please? to be the opening of Devil Wears Prada with those girls getting ready to go to like their fashion magazine job, and KT Tunstyle or whatever her name is, like, suddenly I see, and just like that beginning of, and it talks about, like, you know, she could be in a magazine, and you're just like, oh, like, it was just such a time for magazines. So like, I've always supported magazines, and I'm happy to see that it's coming back, because I was really worried that like Vogue was about to die. I was about to like cry, because they were considering going out of publication there for a second, but they became a luxury item. Themselves are a luxury item. That is wild. And let me just preface into this and say, magazines are great gifts. I love giving my nieces and nephews magazine subscriptions for their birthdays, because you're going to spend $12 anyways, if not $25. Buy them a magazine subscription, and they have it all year, and they think of you once a month when they get the magazine, and they go, wow, thank you, Aunt Montana. And there's magazines for every interest. It's a great gift for me and my husband. Our moms like to get us magazine subscriptions for our birthdays. It's a luxury item. Again, that is such a wild concept to me. If you were to go back in time and be like, Montana, only highfalutin bougie people will have magazines. And I'll be like, my mom must be a millionaire, because she is hoarding. She has stacks every month of magazines. She doesn't even know what she has. And she brings them to me. But also, you can make like collages and mood boards. Like, I've begun, I have a bulletin board in my room now that I've started like ripping K-pop idol pictures, fashion pictures I love, making those old school mood boards that we had when we were young. And it's just so fun to look at and design. And then like, I don't know, I just love a magazine. And I'm just so excited, and I hope they do come back full force, because I'm so tired of digital media. I'm so over it. I would have a BlackBerry tomorrow if they found a way to have Spotify on it, because I have to have Spotify. But I deleted all my apps off my phone except for Instagram. And even then, I'm not on it a super lot, because it's just like, ugh, you know. My husband and I have begun buying DVDs again, vinyls. If not, I buy like the CDs of my favorite K-pop bands, vinyls of other artists I enjoy, magazines, books, DVDs. We're starting to kind of get back that digital library, or not digital library, physical library. Because as Mina Lee has discussed in her digital streaming video, you don't own it.
You don't own me. Don't try to change me in any way. You don't own me. Don't tie me down, 'cause I'll never stay.
You don't own Animal Crossing when you download it on your Switch, but you do own it if you go buy it. And I do miss like journalism. I miss good old fashioned journalism. You know, I loved it when I was a kid. It's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm not a journalist, obviously. I mean, I am here if you want to call this journalism. And I'm happy to see that YouTube is kind of bringing journalists their creative outlets, if you will. But wouldn't it be nice to have what I'm saying printed in a magazine that I could have forever? You know, I don't know. I guess my closing statements are: go subscribe to a magazine, subscribe to your local newspaper so that they can survive. And, you know, crack open that newspaper in the morning with your coffee. Like, forget scrolling and just getting doomsday of what they want you to see, and support a local journalist and photographer, and just pop open that newspaper, give the comics to your kids, and, you know, just be that 90s sitcom family, I guess, where it's just like, well, I need the business, and oh, give me, you know, home entertainment, and the kids have the comics, and like everybody has the newspaper. Get you a little newspaper, get you highlights. I'm sure the dentist's office around the world are keeping highlights in business. Maybe start your own magazine. It's the time. But anyways, thank you. Please like this video. Subscribe. It's for free. And I'm giving you a luxury product. Not really. And I will see y'all very soon with my next super professional journalism topic.